Hello, everyone. My name is Bill Daniels, and I'm the program leader for Native Seed Communities, which is a project of the Indiana Native Plant Society. We're glad you've joined us for Will Drew's presentation tonight. First off, let me thank Deb Housen, who will be helping with some of the technical aspects and also helping to manage the chat. Also, for the best experience for everyone, if you would please keep yourself muted, unless, of course, you're invited to unmute. Before I introduce Will, I'd like to share with you some information about Native Seed Communities. Native Seed Communities promotes networks of native plant enthusiasts working together regionally to procure, to process, and propagate native plant seeds, and with the whole purpose of increasing these beautiful and ecologically appropriate native plants in all of our landscapes. Our presentations, such as Will's tonight, are devoted to discussing the propagation of native plants from seeds and the spotlighting of organizations and individuals that mobilize native plant enthusiasts to use these seed-grown plants in their local landscapes. We have a lot of resources on the web, on the Indiana Native Plant Society's website, as well as through social media. Indiana Native Seed Communities is our Facebook page, and we've got over 2,000 people that are following. And so there's a lot of interaction there, and we invite you to take advantage of those. Okay, let me introduce our speaker. Will is the Natural Resource Specialist for the Knox County, Indiana Soil and Water Conservation District. Concurrently, he coordinates the Knox County Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area, CISMA. Many of you may be familiar with CISMA, and is the president of the State of Indiana Cooperative Invasives Management Organization, SICIM. Invasive species management and best management practices for natural areas are very important to Will. He leads and assists with several ongoing invasive plant removal efforts around the county. Also, he helped Knox County be the first county in Indiana to pass an invasive plant ordinance in August 2018. In addition, Will is an advocate for the naturalization of urban and rural areas back to native plants to promote the habitat for all types of wildlife and pollinators. He helps manage an effort in Knox County to provide local plants to local and regional residents. This is a program that I'm quite familiar with. I've been down a few times during his work parties, and really has done some great things. And in fact, we benchmarked a lot of what he does here in our Monroe County area. So we're quite appreciative that he shared with us. And so tonight we wanted to share him with you all. So I will now give you Will Drews.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, that and I was just thinking about that. It's a great bio that I think I wrote myself, but technically it's even now out of date, Bill. So I am technically most of those things, but I've done some transitioning, and that's a whole nother thing. But I'm going to be moving with the DNR here, and yeah, but so just to throw that out there.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Okay.
Well, I think you gave that to me like 2 months ago.
I know.
So.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, a lot could happen. So, all right, hi everyone. I'm going to start sharing my screen, and we're going to get this going. Let's see. Okay, share screen. I'm going to start this PowerPoint. Okay. Cool, but all of this still holds true. I am while I am transitioning to DNR, I still am staying on transitioning and keeping some things going with the SWCD and CISMA, Knox County CISMA. And today I'm here to talk to you guys about the native plant program, that propagation program that we started a while back now, 2017. And kind of what that looks like, how we started and got going with that, as well as then kind of what we've done with the plants that we've grown. We've done a lot of sales, but we've also done projects too that I thought maybe the group might be interested in. So And I think looking at some of the participants, actually looks like I have a lot of our local members that are online here today too. So cool, guys. You guys probably know most of this, but I'm glad you joined too. Okay, so we'll just get going. A little background about our SISMA, Knox County SISMA. Kind of roughly, the idea was turned around with the Soil and Water Conservation District, and some momentum or some programming kind of started all the way back in 2014 to try to start coordinating local invasive species efforts. Then in 2016, coordinator was hired that also to help manage the SISMA as well as do other technical assistance for the SWCD, and that the position that I've been in. Our group officially became our own 501c3 nonprofit organization as of October 2018. And our mission is to minimize the impact of invasive species in Knox County by educating the public, monitoring and removing invasive plants, and promoting and protecting native plants. So when we're visioning as an organization early on, we, besides removing invasive plants and trying to encourage others to remove invasive plants, we realized as a group that we really did want to spend a good deal of focus in not only telling people what to remove, but also telling them what they should conserve, protect, and reestablish in their own yards or properties. So that's kind of was one of the ways that we started going down this path. So you might be asking, well, invasive species group, why would you try to decide to grow native plants, which is it takes a bit of work. I'll say that. So we initially were not going to grow our own plants. We initially kind of wanted to work with already our local dealers and see if we could potentially advertise for them or hopefully advertise what native plants they were carrying, hopefully have them acquire more native plants. But really, we were pretty unsuccessful with that initially. So the native plants that they did have available were basically all cultivars. Some of them could be quite pricey in that. I mean, one of the big ones you can see kind of one of the pictures I have here, that Denver Black-Eyed Susan, Denver Sunrise, something like that, cultivar Black-Eyed Susan, which is very attractive, but very pricey for a Black-Eyed Susan. I'll imagine. I think that clump is like $20 or something. So besides having only a limited amount of stock, I mean, hard to get into for the general average person just looking to maybe get started with growing a native plant or two. In addition, mostly what you would find at the nurseries would be a lot of non-native plants at best, and invasive plants at worst. So you know, you could find whole large flats of periwinkle, which we obviously did not want people to plant, as well as like different olives and privets that, while maybe not necessarily classified as invasive right now, are definitely not something that we'd recommend for someone to use. So there's also that issue of nothing's labeled in the nursery; they're all plants. So and some of the staff, like these were plants from Lowe's. They weren't, you know, if you go and ask an employee, they wouldn't be able to help you find what you're looking for if you're looking for native plants. So yeah, so we had all that. And so we decided as a group that we would try to take on growing our own plants and just seeing what happened. So let's see. How we really got started is early on we partnered with the Southwest Purdue Ag Center. So we have a great resource here locally in our community, just a little bit north of Vincennes. the Southwest Purdue Ag Center, which is one of the regional ag centers around the state that does agricultural research, and is a part of Purdue University. And they had some extra greenhouse space that they were not currently utilizing, and were willing to lend us basically that space to grow plants. So what we did is we're like, that sounds great. Now we just need to find money in order to do things. So our initial funding to kind of get started with this project is we applied for a Clean Water Indiana grant, and that's a state pool, generally allocated or soil and water conservation districts, allocated for soil and water conservation districts, but other conservation organizations have applied and gotten grants from them before. But they provide us with the initial funding for startup propagation supplies to get going. And we luckily had a lot of support from our local SWCD, the board there, and supportive of my time in order to kind of make this thing happen. So let's see. All right, so you can kind of see a little bit of an oblique aerial of the Southwest Purdue Ag Center right there in the bottom, and that orange circle or red circle that just popped up, that's greenhouse we've been able to use, that we were fortunate to be able to partner with them for that. Okay, so a look at our native plant propagation is one of the other cool things is basically all of the seed that we use, we've tried to locally source, and we'll have both. We've had collection work days. I've collected seed, generally from county properties with permission from the county park superintendent. And then what you can see here on the left is we would have seed cleaning parties where we would have SISMA members, and they'd help. So when we collect the seed, help remove the chaff and kind of get it down to something that we can utilize. And so that's what's happening there. And then once it's cleaned, well, these on the right, more specialized, but those are pawpaw seeds that were, I think, cleaned while enjoying the pawpaw fruit. But we'll with certain species, they'll have a secondary dormancy, or they'll have dormancy breaking mechanisms required before we would propagate them. So like those guys are going into cold, moist storage. And we have several, actually most of the species we grow require some what's called cold moist or chilling stratification. And pawpaws require a lot that can range from anywhere from 7 days, can break some, 7 to 10 days can break some seeds dormancy requirements. When some species like pawpaw generally preferred more like 3 months. So anywhere between that. And we mostly utilize the Prairie Moon Nursery Guide for that. They have great resources that you can find for all those requirements. And we'll either have the seed cleaned and ready to go, or cleaned and then we'll have a second processing, whether it's stratification, a little bit of scarification, but that we don't have a lot of species that we grow that need that. And then we'll be kind of more ready to plant. You can see here, these are common milkweed seeds after cold moist stratification. You can see actually on this one on the foreground already starting that cotyledon starting, or radical probably starting to pop out there, which is pretty cool. That's what we want to see. And then we get to once we've kind of gone over that, we get to then get to the kind of the fun parts, the planting. The planting's probably the thing that we get the most help with, and you can see a lot of well, Lisa on the right there, lots of happy faces. We'll use a combination depending on the seed. We'll either use more plug flats, what you see in that right picture there, where there's an individual cell for each 50, we use 50 cell plug flats where each kind of seedling gets its own space to grow. But we'll also use communal flats, which you'll see that I'm standing in front of on the left image there, mostly depending on the size and germination requirements for the seed. So some of the seeds we grow are very small, and some of them also require light to germinate, and those we'll generally do on the communal flats, where we just kind of spread them lightly on top. Whereas some of the larger seeds, it's much more easier to use the plug flats, and we'll sow them in there with a little bit of dibbling, mostly with pencils or pens or little objects like that. We did this all throughout COVID too. So some of the images that I have, have us masking up, and so we'll grow out the plants, and once we have the seeds started, what we'll do is we'll transplant them up, pot them up, and you can see kind of some of the work in both these photos of what that looks like, where we remove them from the plugs, the propagation flats, and then we'll move them into individual pots. And we use currently mostly three different pot sizes for kind of the size plant and how it develops and how old it is now. And yeah, it's really cool, especially I guess probably one of the most enjoyable things is seeing, the greenhouse full of different native plants. And so here you can see kind of what it looks like after we get things really going. And some of one of my favorites to see that pops up from and looks really cool off the bat, so the green dragon there that you can see in there. Though I should preference that's not from seed. Green dragons do not pop up that well developed. That's actually a second-year plant, which besides with some things, green dragon is an easy one because it develops a bulb-like structure called a corm. And with some of them, we will actually, if we don't sell them, what we've been doing recently is we'll bare root or save the specialized underground structures and start them from that. So that's actually a second-year-old green dragon seedling right there that's a little bit more well developed. Okay, let's see. Kind of the way our greenhouse operations work, we try to do everything as cost effective as possible. We reuse a lot of supplies if we can. So what you see in the left-hand picture is one of our volunteers doing some cleaning. We try to clean and sanitize and reuse pots if we can, if they aren't too worn down, as well as trays and our other flats. In addition, what's helped out a lot is we initially started with just doing hand watering for everything, which is rewarding. It's cool to go out to the greenhouse and water. It's also very time intensive. So one of the things that we added on kind of more recently is an automated water system in order to give a little bit of, at this time, really, with how the plants are developed, it doesn't necessarily fully water them, but it does kind of give an extra mist and cools things down in the greenhouse, so they don't lose water as quickly and kind of cool down the plants, which they definitely need during these summer months in the greenhouse. Okay, and one of the big things that we've done with our plants, and we started this off the bat, is we've taken them and had our own native plant sales to kind of fill that gap of providing our local residents, and sometimes we've had people travel quite a bit to get native plants from us. So we'll have standalone plant sales at the Southwest Purdue Ag Center. We just kind of throw up a pop-up tent, have our plants out there, and we've generally done that once or twice a year. That's always been fun and gone over well. We've tried to be at the Vincent's farmers markets. That's the top and bottom picture there, kind of either in the indoor space or out. Outside and featured with, you can get your produce, or you can get plants to plant in the garden or landscape. One of our most successful plant sales that we've had, and we've done this for a while, is at the Spirit of Incense Rendezvous, a big reenactment, period reenactment that happens Memorial Day. That's the middle photo there. And that always goes over really well. We dress up ourselves personally, and we also during that time try to mention about the kind of the history of the native plants, how these would be what you would actually see growing wild in the past around the same time period. And we'll sometimes get into some of them. We have fun medicinal and kind of historic facts and tidbits for some of those species. We've been at the Knox County Fair before and tried to sell plants there. It's normally a harder sell at the fair. We weren't there this past year. It's generally brutally hot, and well, people are going around buying a plant on a hot summer evenings, generally not when they're around rides and other free things and food, generally not a high priority, but we have been there. In some years we have reached and gotten plants to different people through that venue. We host our own Nature Days events, which kind of we have our own, run by the CISMA, conservation event that has various we've done on featuring a different topic each year. We have our next one's going to be actually this Saturday, and it's going to be all about kind of imperiled species of Knox County, which should be a fun one, and we'll generally have at least a small plant sale there as well. And other conservation events that occur. We've done some events with Knox County Goes Native, a local initiative that I guess I'm repping today. We've had events and had plant sales for that, as well as Monarch Madness had a monarch tagging, public monarch tagging event during the monarch migration. That's gone over well, and things like that. So I guess I should say a lot of groups, when they talk about doing a plant sale, they talk about, they have one a year. We have a lot. We're not quite a regular stand, but almost at least generally twice a month we'll try to have some sort of plant sale. So yeah, it's a fair deal. And so kind of what that looks like kind of financially for our group, because we've utilized this in the past as kind of our most extensive moneymaker as a group to fund whatever operations and outreach we wanted to do, is it's been very successful for us as a group. You can kind of see some breakdowns of some of the numbers over the years. And we've sold anywhere from 1,000 plants starting initially in 2017 up to, I think we peaked at selling like over 3,000 2020. That was a huge year. And yeah, plant sales, and I haven't done any numbers for 2023, but yeah, over this time frame, 2018 to 2022, we gross raised over $30,000, net with expenses, which are fairly minimal, netted over $25,000 as a group. So and with that, we've been able to well do a lot as a group, which has been really cool. One of the cool, besides the money, kind of mostly what we're trying to do is have a wide range of native plant species available for well, everyone, locally as well as more regionally. And so what we've tried to do is grow a wide variety of native plant species too. So in any given year, we teeter from when we first tried it out, like having, well, when we started in 2017, just a pilot project, and we didn't really have a lot of seeds gathered and set up by then, but we had about 37, 38 species we sold, but we've gone all the way up to 2019 was a wild year, but we tried to grow about 100 different native plant species, which I do not recommend personally. That was a wild time, but we've kind of more teetered around like between 80 to 90 different species on a given year, which is still a lot. Generally, it's a lot of herbaceous flowering species. Those tend to do the best and what we get the most requests for. But we do try to have a healthy array of other things, such as grasses. Even though they generally tend to be a tough sale, we try to have them and promote them where we can. Sedges too, rushes, vines, both woody and herbaceous, and trees and shrubs. Generally, kind of the species that we grow are mostly more open or woodland edge species, but we do have some specifically woodland species and especially more recently a lot of wetland species that we grow as well. Some of them are well known to gardeners, like purple coneflower. We grow purple coneflower. We kind of have to because we get so many requests and people ask for it. But some species we grow kind of more for potentially those folks that want to do more restoration or kind of adding to an edge of a woodland or other natural area that they have now. So what's a good example of that? Wingstem would be a good example of that. I love wingstem. It's great. It's a great woodland edge plant. Grows very tall though, and maybe not the best for right, in front of a porch, but a fun plant that could be used for more kind of restoration. Besides, also some gardening, landscaping aspects as well. Okay, so we grow a ton of plant species, but kind of breaking it down here of kind of some of our most purchased native plant species, or what we've seen that we've grown that has had the highest demand or request. Here are some that kind of stand out in particular. Number one would probably be butterfly weed, the orange flowering milkweed, or Asclepias tuberosa. We can basically not grow enough of it. There's so many requests and for it, it's wild. But we're capped out just with how many starts we can grow. It's always one of the fastest to sell out each year as well. Consistently, another top seller has been foxglove beard tongue, sometimes called smooth penstemon. Penstemon digitalis, that generally does very well. I push it heavily too. It's in my opinion, it's a utilitarian plant that can handle a diverse array of conditions. So it can almost work in basically any soil conditions and in any yard. So we push it a lot. It's attractive and people do get a lot from us. Wild bergamot's another popular one, our native Monarda fistulosa, pink flowering bee balm, lavender flowering bee balm. That's again, it's super easy to propagate. We sell a lot of it, we grow a lot of it, and we sell a lot of it. The people are generally, we'll say, people are like, do you have bee balm? And we'll point them to it. Sometimes they're actually referring to the species that's not quite native for us, scarlet bee balm or Monarda diadema, but we get a lot of requests for wild bergamot, and we steer a lot of people to it, and a lot of people are heavy by it. It's a great pollinator plant. It brings in lots of butterflies, bees, moths, you name it. So goldfinches even too, but we that's another top one. Black-eyed Susans, surprisingly, it's an easy one. People do they know about it. And so it's an easy one to start from seed and get to flower very quickly. So we'll grow it, we'll start seeds, and we'll have them flowering like a month and a half. And so once they start flowering and we bring them out at plant sales, they sell very fast. And then swamp milkweed's been a top seller for us, Asclepias incarnata. I think it's mostly fed by the gardening community. I think it's been featured in some things as a more suitable landscape plant than common milkweed in some situations, and we've had a lot of requests for it as well. So you can see I have kind of a table on the right hand side, some of the other species that we've had that have really been kind of the #1 top seller for a given year. So other things: common milkweeds, consistently high cardinal flower, world milkweed, purple cone flower, spot bee balm, little blue stem, spot joe pieweed, blue vervain, are some of those other species. And in case I went over those too fast and you need help visualizing those, I have a slide with all those species. So some of the top species that we sell. This is going from top left clockwise, but that butterfly weed, super attractive, been top seller. To the right of that, foxglove beard tongue. Then to the right, wild bergamots. Then black-eyed Susan, swamp milkweed, which features a pollinator already on there. Not a monarch, though we get a lot of monarchs on them. Bumblebee, but they attract a lot of things. And actually, I find bumblebees in particular really enjoy visiting them as well. Purple cone flower underneath. Going back to the left, common milkweed. Then going over spotted bee balm. And I guess I should preference if anyone's on here and or make an asterisk on the spotted bee balm. Technically not native to Knox County. More would be more northern with the dune type area, but we do have similar habitat and down here in the county, and it does very well. It's a very attractive plant, and a great one for pollinators too. So we haven't had that every year, but we've had it some years, collecting it from other plantings here, and it's it is striking. I do like it, even if it's not technically a native to our specific county. Then to the right, the striking red of cardinal flower, and finally world milkweed. World milkweed, I think, is kind of elevated in some of our plant sales, because if in a given year we run out of butterfly weed, oftentimes we'll try to promote or substitute world milkweed for butterfly weed, because it kind of has a similar height. Very different growing plants, attractive and short stature. Generally, world milkweed is a little bit more, actually has some short rhizomes and does a little bit of spreading, as opposed to a single taproot. But a fun, attractive plant that I think does lend itself well for landscaping as well. Okay, and then next up, besides kind of having plants that people could purchase, we also want to do, as a group, do some projects and try to get plants out in kind of the community, and so we've advertised kind of as a group that will help organizations or entities, not necessarily private landowners for a backyard, but a more public space, either run by a nonprofit or other public entity, and create a native plant garden or planting for them, and where we can utilize our plants that we grow. We'll do the design, help with the installation, and sometimes maybe help with the maintenance as well. But here's a cool one that actually we just featured on a native plant garden tour. This is our, and Frank's gonna get mad at me if he's on the call, but It's at the Spirit of Vincennes Rendezvous grounds, though technically the location would be the French Commons, we call it, in Vincennes, but our native garden there, starting from really, well, poor soil, very poor soil. An old glass factory used to be on this site, and there's still shards from charcoal. We'll run into a lot of undesirable things in the top level of soil. And we prepped an area to do kind of a little prairie plant garden, and you can kind of see before on the left, then after on the right, right after planting. And then here's we had one of our SISMA members who's also involved with the rendezvous a lot. Frank made a nice sign, Cafflinet Prairie Garden for the area to let folks know, and have that sign up for the rendezvous too, when folks are around and could kind of see it. And then here's what it looked like, oh gosh, a couple years after, where it's starting to fill in. We have, you can see black-eyed Susan, some purple cone flower, wild bergamot in the back, compass plant, maybe late boneset, common milkweed, and really starting to kind of develop. And even now it's switched a little bit more recently, with having some of those more very drought tolerant plants that have kind of done the best over time, because the poor kind of sandy soil that's there. But overall, I think it's been a success. We had a garden that we installed for Child and Family Services building in town. This was just a small little spot that they kind of wanted to do. One of the past directors for a program there wanted to kind of do a little thing and kind of feature it at their spot. And so we did this little kind of more, this was trying to be more of a xeriscaping garden with very drought tolerant plants that hopefully would require basically no maintenance, no watering or anything. And here it is a year or so after, and I was doing very well for a while. I've not been by it recently, but when we got it established, and we do small projects look like to hopefully reaching a different audience as well with that. Again, another one. This is for our local Vincennes and Knox County Preservation Foundation, but they had a historic building and property and wanted a little natural garden too. So we did just took some lawn out and made a little a garden area with that, and utilizing native plants, some with some unique ones, and it's the building's an old French house, and so we wanted to kind of incorporate maybe some things that we have, like wild bergamot, and some things that would have been used probably medicinally and back there for teas during that time, and some other fun things in there specifically for the project. And then kind of one of the more recent projects that we've been involved with and started getting going is working with the local George Rogers Clark National Historic Park on kind of a big native planting project that's been cool. But it's a kind of a reimagining of a section of their lower levee trail, which goes right by the Wabash River, and utilizing just kind of right now mostly mowed vegetation, or sometimes allowed to grow up, but trying to be more intentional and utilizing native plants, maybe creating more of a meadow habitat for it. So you can kind of see here on the right, conceptual image with the memorial in the background, or monument, the levee, and then kind of the area that we plan on doing the planting. And a look at we plan on having different mixes with different combinations of species planted in large swaths during this area, in this area. Utilizing all native plants, of course. But this is, as it looks like, it's right by the river, is going to have a lot of tough pressure on it, including periods of drought during this time in the summer, as well as being potentially flooded significantly during the spring. And so what we want to do, and potentially whenever we get lots of large rainfall events, we start out by planting some test plots, utilizing our native plants. Here's one of those test plots, trying to actually make sure that the species that we have picked for this plan can actually tolerate the swings in the harshness of the environment. So we have those going on now and are excited to kind of see how they do for this planting. But this will be a large planting. I think we'll be planting about 8,000 plugs for this throughout the course of the project. All right, and that's it. Or I shouldn't say that's it, but that's all I prepared for today. So I think I see there might be some questions. There's time for questions. Feel free, if you're interested more about learning about kind of our SISMA, feel free to go to our website listed there, which is through the Knox County Soil and Water Conservation District website. So you can utilize that link, or it's Knox County CISMA.org is the easier URL that gets to our website, as well as we do have a Facebook page. Our Facebook page tends to be where we mostly advertise, especially the plant sales. So feel free to follow us there in Knox County CISMA if you're interested in kind of connecting and learning about our plant sales and projects. Okay, I think that's it.
So, Will, this is Deb Howson, and there was a question in there. I think there's a couple more I actually may have. So earlier on, you were talking about all the plant sales that you hold throughout the year, which is great to have so many opportunities to get native plants. Nikki was asking that she tends to think of plant sales before June or maybe going into the fall, and was interested to know, are people buying plants in July and August as maybe as frequently as they would in the earlier part of the season?
Not necessarily as frequently, but yeah, yes, you'd be surprised. Yes, they do definitely buy plants in the summer. What I like to say is that if you take care of the plants, you can plant them at any time. It does not matter. So the only issue with planting like right now is that you will have to pretty consistently once a day water until they get established. But especially our prairie plants, I can get established quickly, and they'll do fine with a morning watering for a couple weeks with the occasional rain, and yeah, they'll take off. So yeah, people will still, but no, people still do buy. And actually, I feel like we get more because all the other kind of groups, like the Southwest chapter of the Native Plant Society, hosts generally a fall or sometimes a spring and fall sale, and there are a lot of groups that do that, just either do a fall or spring sale. There's kind of this scarcity in the summer, so we'll occasionally have folks that, if they have a garden and want to kind of finish it or add some things to it, we'll have people travel during the summer to get plants.
Yeah, great. So a lot of comments on great presentation and great info and all the projects you're doing. Linda wanted to know if the owners take over the maintenance of those gardens and projects that you put together. basically? Who's
Oh,
responsible?
that's a good question, Linda. That was always kind of our intention when we kind of started doing things. No, it's not always worked out like that. No, we've had to, as a group, kind of eat tabs and try to help out and supplemental, do some maintenance. We have a couple areas that are being maintained or kind of allowed to kind of more naturalize and have done fine. And I like to say that too. You can kind of think of plantings as if you're willing for more of kind of the naturalized look and feel to it, really they can be self-sufficient pretty well. They'll kind of, plants will move around, they'll kind of clump up. You may have some more aggressive actors that could use some thinning. But if you have a large enough area, it's fine. It's generally the ones that we've done that have tried to be more structured or formal, where if they don't have regular maintenance, yeah, we've had to jump in and
I'm a
help
wild
out.
child.
Yeah.
Like my own is kind of wild. Great.
I like that. I try to be like, people, the plants are going to move where they want to move on the property, and it's the wildlife's going to love it. As long as you can live with, maybe some neighbors being like, hey, can I mow your yard for you? Which I do get often, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
But
Exactly. Yeah. And unfortunately, natives, they all seem to have weed in the name. And so everyone's like, how's your weed going?
That's a side comment, Deb. We have been trying to do that locally. We've just tried that this year of trying to utilize alternative names for certain plants in order to maybe make them more attractive and get more takers. One of the big ones, or actually there were two big ones that we kind of tried this on this year. One of them, sneezeweed, which is just the most attractive flowering yellow wetland or kind of wet prairie plants that works really well in landscaping too. But because it's called sneezeweed and it's rightfully named, it has an old interesting usage of inducing sneezing. But you have to forcibly do that to yourself. So it doesn't pertain to it. But people are kind of, they're like, no, I don't want to plant a weed that's going to make me sneeze. So like that's one where like an alternative common name that we tried advertising for is Helen's flower, because it's a Helenium genus, and that's gone over well as let me think, tall thimbleweed is one we have, which is really attractive and does well again in a variety of conditions. But do people necessarily would a gardener plant a plant called thimbleweed? Probably not, unless they knew about it. So we've been calling that tall anemone, and gardeners know what anemones are, and trying to kind of do a little bit of branding for that
creative license. So good. So I think it was a follow-up question maybe to Linda, was how large is your group that you have that helps volunteer?
Well, like half of them are on here now. They could speak up if they wanted to. We have a pretty big group, which is nice. Let me think. We have about kind of on our steering committee for our group, our governing committee for the 501c3 organization. We have 15 members, which helps, and a lot of them do a lot of work themselves on various things like this. But then generally for other projects, and we do sometimes advertise for help, and we have some folks that specifically just volunteer, want to help out with the propagation effort. So we have some folks that really, they just want to do planting. We'll draw in maybe a pool of 50-ish active-ish members that will help out on our projects in any given year.
That's great. I'll have to maybe chat with you offline about how we incorporate more into in our county. So Nikki has another question for you. She also a great presentation. What was the startup cost for your program as far as the seed, supplies, equipment, or anything else that was incurred?
Gosh, Nikki, yeah, that's a good question. So I wrote that grant 7 years ago. Let me think offhand. It was pretty minimal. I want to say we started with $500 to $1,000. Wasn't anything crazy. Because kind of the goal was to just get some startup supplies, but as we started selling plants, and as you could kind of see from some of the metrics that we had, we became self-sufficient very quickly. So yeah, it wasn't a lot of money, and we were able to really make it back and then a lot quickly. So yeah. No more than 1,000, no less than 500, somewhere there. There's a lot of one of the cool things is because we got to utilize the kind of the most expensive thing, if we had to do it, would be to get the growing structure and that equipment and maintenance. But because we were having that provided in kind, we didn't have any of that. All we had to do initially, most of our costs were for all of our propagation flats, so the plug flats, communal flats, support trays, individual pots, carrier trays for the pots, soil, technically soilless growing media, but potting soilless growing media. That is probably our single highest cost, would be the actual potting soil tends to be the largest cost any given year. We utilize the good stuff. I don't know, a fairly expensive mix called Metro Mix that the Southwest Ag Center uses for all their propagation efforts too. And it works really well. We've utilized a couple formulations. They have more a general growing mix for seed starting that we use mostly, but we've used more transplanting mixes too, especially for kind of the larger plants and for potting up plant species as well.
Well, matter of fact, I was going to ask you a question, and my own question was that you're.
Oh, and she's asking seeds. No cost for the seeds, because we initially collected all of those locally. So that was easy. Well, I shouldn't say easy. It took a lot of time, but we saved that cost from that.
Yeah. It's easy to collect the seeds. It's time consuming to clean the seeds and get them prepped.
Yes. It's nice to it's good to have a volunteer group for that. Yes.
Yeah. So a question that's mine, I didn't post it onto the chat, is do you sell any of your seeds that you have left over, or do you actually try to propagate all that you collect, or do you save some for the following year?
That's a great question, Deb. We have not sold seeds before. Actually, I was under the impression that it was technically illegal to do so without becoming a registered seed vendor, though I've learned that they're lax on wildflowers, which I don't know actually how I take that, because that sounds like that could run into an issue very quickly if people are misidentifying and harvesting seeds. But
Will, if I may add, I have gone to the state chemist office who oversees the seed rules and everything, and that is right. The wildflower seeds and the native seeds do not fall under their rules. I do have I do have a letter from them regarding that, but yeah, it's kind of interesting, but just some feedback there. Now,
I
you
know.
know, yeah, anyway.
So initially we thought, well, we don't want to go the hassle of getting our seeds tested, because otherwise for most seeds you have to get them tested, and you have to send them off to a certified seed analyst and all that. And we're like, no, we have a lot of capacity as a group. We don't have that much time or energy that we want to put into it. But even so, what we'll generally do is we do collect a lot of seed, and sometimes we save that over. A lot of the seed that we collect, I mean, we'll utilize then that same seed source for the next year. So this is very species dependent and storage dependent, but a lot of the seeds that we collect, we can go up to, on a given species, 5 years-ish, it seems, before we really notice a drastic decrease in viability or germination. So what we'll keep doing is, if we have a good seed source, we'll keep utilizing it, especially the ones that require that secondary dormancy mechanism. You just treat them whenever you're ready to do it with the stratification, and they'll do pretty well.
Great.
I've noticed though, after you get past that 5 year, that 6 year and on, they really decrease very drastically.
Interesting. Okay, good info. So I think we're coming on the end of the time. So Bill, I'll turn it back to you to wrap up. I think you're on mute.
There we go. I think I'm unmuted.
There you are. Yes, you are.
All right. Well, great. Will, thanks so much. I have appreciated all your feedback and your help with as I mentioned, our activities here in Monroe County. We've actually we've done fall sales with the MC Iris group, very similar to your group down there, and we have done really well with our fall sales. Now, we don't have the opportunity of a greenhouse, which is really nice to be able to do good spring sales, because our seedlings they have to follow nature's course. And so we do have the fall sale, and we as a growers group, we're growing those out. And last year we had 7,000 plants for sale. We sold probably, I think, in the realm of 6,000 for our fall sale, and that really it does remarkably well. And that's that means you've got a growers group that's growing them out all through the summer, but we've got a dedicated group. So, but thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Great feedback. And I really appreciated the data too. I think that is helpful for groups that are, looking at that kind of thing. All right.
I should notice,
yes.
I should say too, like Vincennes, I mean, we're a small community. So I guess some people might be like, and I thought this too, Bill, I'm like, Bloomington should do very well for a plant sale. Like, we are not a large community in Vincennes. So what I'd like to say is, like, this, like, our kind of group or this thing could be representative of a lot of counties in Indiana. If you're like on the fence or wondering like, oh, we couldn't do this. We don't have a large county in Knox County. We're under 40,000, so less than, well, Bloomington, the population for our entire county. So yeah, for the folks, I mean, but again, I have a lot of local folks who are on here, but for anyone else that views this video and webinar, Great.
Well, we'll go ahead and wind it up today. Now, we have shared a number of links in the chat. I believe those have been shared, correct? Correct,
Yes.
Deb?
Yes, they
Okay,
have.
great, great. I forgot to double check that before I said that. So there are a lot of links in there, but you can also directly contact the Native Seed Communities Committee at seed@indiananativeplants.org, and I believe that's in the chat as well. We invite you to join our Facebook group to be a part of that. Pictures, videos, pictures of seeds and videos of propagation, etc. You're quite welcome to join us, and we'd love to have you. As has been our pattern to date, we will have another presentation in August. It'll be on Monday, the 28th, and at this one, I believe we're starting at 7 p.m. We will be communicating it in the Facebook group and other places in the next week or so. But it's going to be Eileen Davis, environmental educator for Lake County Forest Preserves. And Lake County, I can't see my picture right now, but can you see this book? Is that at a good location?
Yep.
No? Okay, great. So they put out a seed collection guide. Now this is the hard copy, but they also have it all digital, which we've shared on our Indiana Native Plant Society's website. But just marvelous resource. Well, anyway, Eileen is with Lake County Forest Preserves that puts that out, and she'll be presenting starting native plants from seeds. So that's right in line with what we're doing here. So thanks again, Will, for your informative session. It's really, really great and appreciate you sharing. Deb, thanks again for helping with all the technical aspects, managing the chat and everything. And it was good to see you all. We'll sign off now. Happy growing natives from seed. All the best, everyone.
See ya.